The Denver Broncos have caught a rough break with this Pat Surtain injury. On the first defensive snap of the game, the Broncos had just thrown an interception. The defense was already in an unfavorable spot. Justin Herbert goes deep down the right sideline for Ladd McConkey. Pat Surtain is there to break up the play, but as he's coming down, he bangs the side of his head on the ground. It was a very scary scene. He grabbed at his head immediately, was down on the field for a couple of minutes, eventually did slowly pop up, made his way over to the sideline, still holding his head the entire time, goes into the injury tent for about 2 minutes, eventually comes out, still kind of holding his head, and then he goes back into the locker room and he's ruled out with a concussion. The first thing that I want to address here is obviously I'm concerned about Pat Surtain's health. The Broncos need to prioritize Pat Surtain, the person here. Head injuries are nothing to mess with. They can have long-term, lasting ramifications. You can replace a knee, you can replace a shoulder, you can't replace your brain. So you have to take this very seriously, and if Pat Surtain has to miss time, then that's okay. I'm more worried about Pat Surtain over the football team right now. But it does look like Pat Surtain is going to have to miss at least one game because he's probably not going to have enough time to clear the concussion protocol before the Broncos play on Thursday night versus the New Orleans Saints. I want to bring in what the protocol actually is because I feel like not enough fans know what the players have to go through before they can be cleared. The first phase of the protocol, and this is the phase Pat Surtain is in right now, is the symptom-limited activity. In this phase, players are asked not to engage in much activity. They're supposed to rest during this period and limit anything that could aggravate their symptoms. They're not supposed to talk to the media after the game. They're supposed to keep a very low profile, and they're just supposed to focus on resting, basically. Eventually, players will be allowed to do limited stretching and light aerobic exercises as long as team's training staff are present. Then you can move into phase 2, which is the aerobic exercise phase. Players will start to work on cardio exercises along with stretching and training with medical team staff supervising. After this phase, players can start working on balance testing. After that, you move into phase 3. In the third stage, players can take part in football-specific exercises and start working with the team for up to 30 minutes under supervision. Players are also able to increase their cardio workloads. Phase 4 is when players can start participating in practice in a limited capacity. This is when you'll start seeing players pop back in to practice and actually be able to really ramp things up. Players reaching the fourth stage are able to start throwing, catching, running, and engage in activities more specific to their position. They can also continue to ramp up their exercise and training. By the end of this phase, players have undergone neurocognitive and balance testings. And that's when you can move into the final phase, which is the full football activity / clearance phase. The player has to be cleared by both the club physician as well as an independent neurotrauma consultant in order to return to full football activities. For Pat Surtain, it sucks because the second phase can't really start until Monday at the soonest. So that means that Surtain's not going to have enough time to get through all of these phases. One phase takes about 1 day at minimum to get through. So by this point, Surtain will probably be in about phase 3 or maybe phase 4 by the time the Broncos take the field on Thursday night, meaning he will not be cleared in time. There is a slight silver lining here, though, because the Saints also caught a bad concussion break as Chris Olave, their wide receiver 1, is out as well with a concussion. He got concussed in today's game against the Buccaneers, and it's the same exact situation. He's not going to be able to clear the protocol in time. So that means that matchup is going to essentially be a wash. The Broncos are going to be without their number 1 corner, and the Saints are going to be without their number 1 receiver. So in theory, that should at least cancel it out to some degree. Obviously, not having the best player on your football team is going to cause issues in its own right in terms of communication, in terms of leadership. And I want to bring in this clip actually from Riley Moss, courtesy of Andrew Mason, who really talked about the void that Pat Surtain left when he got off the field with that injury.
It's one of those things where, something like that happens. We got to be able to, come together and continue to play and have some fire. And, we didn't do that. It was kind of a, dark cloud over our heads, and we got to get out of that. It was just a little funk. And, I think that's something that we got to work on is being able to handle adversity and get through it.
I think Moss saying that it put a dark cloud over the defense is a very true statement. You could tell just from an energy level on the sidelines, on the field, that they weren't playing with the same intensity that they've played with the entire season. Also, from a schematic perspective, you couldn't really do all the stuff that you wanted to do with Pat Surtain not out there. However, the Broncos actually did call the most man coverage in the entire season thus far in this game. So that was a little bit of a surprise, but you're blitzing some of that stuff. You couldn't really do all of that with Pat Surtain not out there because you were leaving other guys on islands. And I thought Riley Moss didn't rise to the challenge today. He's played well this year, but today he didn't rise to the challenge. I thought Jaquan McMillan had a poor game as well. It was just a poor game in general in the secondary. I thought that the pass rush did okay at times. They got to Justin Herbert a couple times, but it wasn't nearly as intense as we've seen these past couple of weeks. The energy was just not quite there, and it all started on that first play for the defense when Pat Surtain went out. And not having Pat Surtain out there is going to be a really tough challenge for the Broncos to overcome on Thursday. But this is a short week. You've got to flush this loss, and you've got to be able to find a way to overcome it. The Broncos need to find a way to get their fourth win of the season, get back above 500, move into the following week against the Carolina Panthers, an opponent that definitely is beatable. We can't look ahead past this Saints game because this is definitely going to be a tough challenge. But I think in some ways it's a good thing that the Broncos are playing on a short week, but not in terms of the timing of this Pat Surtain injury. All right, Broncos country, I am curious. How do you guys feel the Pat Surtain injury affected things on defense? And do you think that the Broncos will be able to overcome it if he's not out there on Thursday against New Orleans? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.